Hey everyone, welcome to the Sustainability Spiral. I'm Ella.
And I'm Kim, and this is the podcast where we take you through sustainability's hottest topics, pun intended. In this week's episodes, we are spiraling about this heat wave that's just hit the UK, and we'll be hoping to leave you feeling much cooler, just like that £20 Argos fan that we've all just bought that's working overtime.
And don't forget, if you want to get involved and share your spirals, follow us on Instagram at the Sustainability Spiral. And don't forget to hit follow on your podcast player app so you never miss a spiral. Should we get into it, Kim?
Let's get into it.
So, heat wave. It's been pretty hot.
How have you been holding up in the heat this week?
I mean, as a ginger English woman, not well. I will say it was a lot
What do
of
you mean? You must be built for this.
thriving. I was not. This was a case of I was surviving, I was not thriving this weekend.
So yeah, guys, this week another record has been broken. It feels like every
Um,
time you read anything about sustainability, it's records being broken, not in the good way.
Smash those records. No, I heard some like crazy statistic that in May, in the whole of like record keeping, there's been like 7 days in the past where it's the temperatures in May have gone above 30 degrees, and we had
Whatever in the UK.
ever in
Well, since
what
records
since records
began.
began. Obviously, like let's not go back to like 65,000 years ago. It's probably 30 degrees then. That's a
Geologists.
joke for my geoscientists.
We're laughing, but we don't understand it.
But yeah, we went from like only having 7 in history or like in records in the UK to then having 3 in a consecutive weekend. Is that not crazy?
Jesus, that's like, it's just not good, is it?
No,
Also,
it's quite scary.
the days are tough. The nights are a furnace of hell. Like, I feel like that's where it just really starts to affect people. It's like the sleeping
Mm.
arrangements in these like stuffy little flats that is just not good.
I feel like I always, when there's a heat wave, I'm always just like in my head, like mentally, like rocking in a corner, just being like, again, it's hot again, it's climate change again. Do you know what I mean? It
I
always just like
know.
gets me.
I saw that on your Instagram you shared that post that Greenpeace did, and it was
Mm.
like a pretty harrowing photo of someone sat on a chair. And you know when you get like the heat lines that when it's super hot, and then it was from Greenpeace and it was like, this is the coolest spring that you're gonna have for the rest of your life. And I saw that as I was sweating. So I was like, great. Fantastic.
I know. I saw it and I was like, damn, that like hit a chord. I don't know why. Like, sometimes you read things and it's like, it's obviously like an obvious statement and it's not
Mm,
necessarily like that, temperatures fluctuate. So it's not like necessarily completely true. But I was like, oofed was my exact response.
oofed.
Oofed.
Oofed and Google's how much is air conditioning.
Well, so I'm a chronic news and weather listener, so I was really enjoying the BBC Radio 4 weather forecasts over the weekend. um, and I love how on the news when they do the weather, they like explain the weather to you. So they're like, for it to be these things, it has to meet these conditions. So they were talking about how for it to be a heat wave, I didn't know this. Officially, it has to be like above average temperatures for that time of year 3 consecutive days in a row. So it has to like exceed
Interesting.
maximum temperatures 3 consecutive days, and only then is it a heat wave. Heat wave.
And how do they re-baseline that every year? Because I guess like what is an average temperature now? Because it is so wackadoodle. It's like up and down all over the shop.
That's such a good point. I guess they must have like a threshold. So they must have an extreme on either
Yeah.
side, and obviously like changes throughout the year. So like the extreme in May would be different from the extreme in like August versus January.
So for it to be a heat wave, it has to be 3 consecutive days outside of the average range.
And also, like, obviously, temperatures have increased, like, because of climate change anyway. So obviously, that makes like the heat waves more extreme. And something else I read was that, which like made me think about my perspective a bit more, is that when we're having heat waves, they're happening already on top of the climate change that we're already experiencing. So it's obviously already warmer, and then the heat waves are happening on top of that warming that's already happening. And I'm like, we are really screwed.
Oh, okay. So I was going to ask that. So I was like, is a heat wave almost like the expected heat increase because of climate change? Or is that kind of now the new baseline and then the heat wave is on top of that?
Yeah, like, it's, like, exacerbating it, I suppose.
Ouch.
I know, we really are, like, a bit fucked. But anyway, do you want the weather explanation? Because I have the weather explanation.
Well, yes, because obviously last time we spoke, we were discussing a bit about El Nino, La Nina, and you gave a wonderful explanation to my GCSE geography brain. But I would like your more. Is it because we're in El Nino that it's so hot this year,
So, we
or are we
are
in La Nina? I don't know.
we're we are not actually in the El Nino phase yet because it happens towards the end of the year. So there's been a lot of, like, articles I've seen. They love to do this, like, the Daily Mail loves to do this. It loves to be like La Nina year, worst year ever happening for temperatures and things like that. And I've seen a lot of those articles going around because they're expecting this year to be a super El Nino when it kicks in kind of like autumn, winter time.
Okay.
But the heat wave itself wasn't caused by an El Nino because we're not quite in that cycle yet. It was caused by a heat dome.
Ooh,
So
not
it's
my
like
favorite kind of dome. What's a heat
um
dome?
but it's essentially like there's like a stubborn, like high pressure that like traps the heat, and then because it's so hot, the like sun is like cooking the ground, so the air like continues to like sink, and it's like essentially like the way it was described by this climate professor at the University of Reading is like a climate pressure cooker.
Oy.
I know. And the dome
Oh,
is
so
like
it
a
keeps
lid, so it keeps, like so it keeps it in, so the hot air, like, can't, like, uplift and escape, and it just is, like, trapped in this, like, unmoving bubble of hot air.
interesting. So hot air doesn't always rise.
Not always. That's the funny thing
Not if
about
there's a
the
pressure cooker.
atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess if you've got a pressure cooker lid coming down on you, it's gonna be trapped in. Oh, what a horrible way to describe it. But do you
I
know what?
know.
Feels accurate because I feel like I've been in a little hot pressure cooker the last couple of days.
Yep, it very much feels pressure cookery. But I was also, like, then delving in a bit more to, like, the El Niño because I was, like when we were prepping for this episode, I was obviously looking at the various news articles over the weekend, and like I said, there was a lot of, like, "Super El Niño coming, worst temperatures ever expected, the end of days is nigh," that kinda thing. I still don't know why it's called El Niño and La Niña, like, I do wonder where those names came from.
So El Nino and La Nina, Nina, originally came from Peru, named by a local fisherman in the 1600s.
Oh,
Damn.
wow.
That's crazy. So, Peruvian fishermen noticed a warm ocean current appearing along the coast every few years, which typically peaked around Christmas time. So, like you said before, like hasn't really kicked in this year yet. In Spanish, El Nino translates to the boy, and when it's capitalized, it refers to the Christ child, El Nino de Navidad. Okay.
The boy of
And then
Christmas. Is that what that
yeah.
means? Yeah. Or
Oh
Christ, I
yeah, I
suppose,
guess
Navidad.
so.
Yeah. Mm.
So, oh, because it came at Christmas, I guess.
Yeah.
So TLDR is we're currently in a pressure cooker heat dome, which is why we are feeling the effects that we're feeling in the UK at the moment. But the good news is it's probably going to get worse because we're not even in La Nina, in El Nino yet, which is the boy, and the boy is hot,
Exactly. The boy is
and the
hot.
girl is cool.
And apparently there are different institutions across the world, but I think we spoke previously about NOAA, um, which is the US, one of the US like climate agencies. And there's different modelling that happens, and they said that apparently this year is expected to be one of, if not like the strongest El Nino based on like the models at the moment of like what's
Mm,
happening in that circulation on record. So I think on record, the highest El Nino year was 2.7 degrees above average, like global temperatures. And
hmm.
apparently this year, the models are showing that it's going to be between 2.5 and 3 degrees above average. So it's going to be a scorcher.
Yikes! And was the last one 2022 then?
The last one was 2024, and 2024, if everyone remembers, was actually the hottest year currently on record. So
Do you know what? It's hard to keep track because every year seems to be the hottest year
Yes.
on record.
Well, baseline
Hottest
shift,
May on
it's just hot
record.
all the time.
I know, I was thinking there was a lot less, like, Mayday puns that I'd expected to see over the last couple of, days as it's been such a scorcher in May. I feel like Mayday would be such a good, like, Daily Mail headline. Have that one for free, guys.
I
There
actually
you go.
really like that. I think that's an
Yeah,
episode
it's good.
title.
Yeah, there we go, we found it.
Mayday, mayday.
I feel like what this heat wave has really shown me is like how ill adapted we are as a nation for extreme heat. Like, obviously, 35 degrees C in the UK feels pretty unbearable. But then I feel like a lot of places in Europe, a lot of places in the Middle East, a lot of places in Asia, like 35 degrees C and above is pretty normal. And they just have more adaptation measures in place to bear that kind of heat, and the UK is just so far behind. So I thought it'd be
Yeah.
interesting if we just talk a bit about some of that terminology. So adaptation versus mitigation. So, climate mitigation, I feel like, is probably something that's a bit more talked about. So, in terms of like how the government's responding to climate change, they are setting like big net zero commitments. The target that we have here in the UK is to reach a net zero position by 2050. That is enshrined in UK law. And that's very much about mitigation. So, how do we stop the effects of climate change getting much worse? But something that's not really spoken about as much in the climate debate is adaptation. So, like, how do we prepare society, business, our supply chains, global trade for climate change that's already locked in and adapt to its impacts rather than focusing entirely on just mitigating its impacts. And it's very much, I feel like, more recently, as we've seen these like changes in our like standard weather here in the UK, people have started to think about climate change is not really this thing that's like going to happen in 5, 10, 15 years. It's happened, it's happening now. We're facing quite dire consequences of the climate that has already changed around us. So, how do we start to think a bit more sensibly and strategically about adapting to those impacts, especially when there's win wins from an adaptation and a mitigation point of view?
And I feel like in the climate debate, mitigation has always been heralded as this like, and we have to mitigate the impacts and consequences of climate change. Like we have to fight to reduce emissions, to reduce like the global warming potential that we're on track for, and like reverse some of the very negative emissions releasing activities that we're doing. Like we have to maintain that net zero pathway and that mitigation. But adaptation, I think, is often thought of as like this like it's oh well we're gonna give up on trying to fix the climate and we'll just like put everyone underground and it'll be fine. I
Yeah.
feel like when I was
Shoot
at
them to the
school
moon.
when I was at school, I feel like that was how it was kind of explained to me. It's like giving up on like actually
Yeah.
fixing the problem and you're just gonna like deal with the effects. So like rather than like actually figuring out what the root cause of climate change is and trying to fix it, you're just like, well, we're not gonna change. So let's just like fix the effects that we're facing rather than like fixing the problem. Which
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Also, adaptation's very much been spoken about in the realm of like flooding and like flood defense and kind of hasn't progressed beyond that conversation. I feel
Mm.
like maybe because the Thames barrier is kind of like she's an icon. Like people know her.
She is
Like
an
I've
icon.
watched a documentary about the Thames barrier and I loved it.
We should go. Another group trip. Thames Barrier.
I would love to go. You know that you can get this thing called the Thames Rocket and it's a speedboat. You have to wear like a full life saving suit, what they called, like a lifeboat suit. I don't know.
Like a
Um,
life jacket.
life jacket, life yeah, but a full suit. And then you go on a speedboat and it takes you to the Thames Barrier. But you can also go and like get a tour, but you just have to write to them. I ran there once. I was like, oh my God, hi.
Hi, bye.
So cute. But yeah, I
That's
feel
so
like adaptation is very focused on like flood defenses because
mm,
I guess that's something that we kind of have had to deal with anyway, just because of like the climate in the UK. We're quite well versed at tackling rainwater, flooding, that sort of stuff. But adaptation is so much broader than that. And sometimes I think we get fixed in like two mindsets, one of which is it's a choice between mitigation and adaptation when actually We need both at the same time, at the same speed, with the same investment.
Say it louder,
And then another,
girl.
say it louder. We need both at the same time.
Someone get her a megaphone,
Yeah. Outside Parliament, please give me some budget.
please.
Um, and then with adaptation, like not really thinking of adaptation measures beyond like the Thames barrier, or that they can also be mitigations alongside. So a good example of an adaptation measure that's also a mitigation measure would be like getting a reversible heat pump. So by installing a heat pump to heat your homes in the winter, if you get a reversible one, it will also help to cool your homes in the summer, which I just think is like such a win-win. Like if you're already doing that, you might as well factor in some adaptation thinking to your mitigation activity.
Another point I always come back to in climate change, whether it's mitigation or adaptation, is like we have all of the tech and the solutions that we need. We have the stuff to do the adaptation, to do the mitigation. Like it's all there. We just need
Yeah.
like, money, investment, policy, and all of those like nice, easy things to unlock it all. But like all of the tech exists. So it's just like,
Yeah.
just go out and grab it, guys.
Do you know who needs to adapt quick? Travel infrastructure in the UK. I'm talking TfL. I'm talking any train going anywhere. As soon as it gets a little bit hot, the line's buckled. The lines are melting. Sorry, guys, it's reached 50 degrees C on the central line. And it's like, guys, I
Did it
feel like this is
actually
happening a bit
reach,
too much now.
did it actually 50 degrees on the central line?
Okay, this says 34 degrees C, but that's not true.
Incorrect.
Temperatures hit 40 degrees C on the London Underground.
When? On the
Yeah.
weekend?
This was posted in 2025, so I guess 2024?
Wow, that's crazy.
40 degrees C, people. Too hot.
My favourite fact about London, which you've already heard many times, is the reason the tube gets so hot is because of the clay. And
Oh, no, tell
everyone,
us.
London is like built on clay, basically. So the underground tunnels are all like tunneled into clay, which is like the local geology. And clay absorbs heat, but it has like a maximum amount that it can absorb. So in the summer when the tube gets so hot, it's because the clay has stored all of the heat it can, and the heat is then just being like pushed into the tube, which is like why it's so hot and disgusting. And there's no
Oh my
like
god, so the clay's
proper
got
good
like
ventilation.
so the clay's almost got like terminal heat trapness.
Carrying capacity. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
I love talking to you in like the most broken sentences and you just turn it into the most eloquent heat capacity. Yeah, that's what I meant. Oh my god, that is
I
so fun. Well,
It's so
it's fun
fun.
fact. It's not a fun reality.
It is not. It is not. I have avoided all tubes like the plague this week. The last time I went
Yeah.
on the tube was about a week and a half ago, and I will be avoiding it.
Should we talk a bit about how adaptation is governed in the UK? Because I think this is really interesting.
Oh yeah, I would love to hear more about that.
So, I guess in terms of how climate change generally is governed, but more from the mitigation side of things, there is the Climate Change Act that happened in 2008, and that is often looked at as like the original emissions law. So, that legally embeds adaptation, but also mitigation efforts within UK law. But as part of the Climate Change Act, it requires that a climate change risk assessment or a CCRA is done every 5 years. And following that risk assessment, they need to publish something called a National Adaptation Programme called a NAP to respond to those risks. So you might have heard that, I know, sleepy time. You might have heard of people like referring to like NAP 2, NAP 3, NAP 4. And that is basically the national adaptation proposals to respond to the risks in the climate change risk assessments. So, like, I guess governing parties or incoming parties can't really like backtrack on that because it's enshrined in law,
That's really cool.
which is cool. So then the Climate Change Committee, or the CCC, who is the UK's independent climate advisory body, they have two main jobs. So they advise on like emission reduction, carbon targets, carbon budgets, that sort of thing. But they also are responsible for assessing preparedness for climate change and adaptation. So as part of the CCC, they have an adaptation committee. So the CCC's AC. Also love that it's called AC.
Nice.
Give me that air
Pun
conditioning.
intended.
Pun intended. And they look at, like, examining all of the risks associated with climate change and how, I guess, prepared we are in responding to those. So things like flood resilience, flood security, water stress, overheating, ecosystem vulnerability, all of that good stuff. So it's the adaptation committees as part job to look at that as part of the CCC. I just think that's interesting in terms of how it all works together.
Mm, for sure. And the Climate Change Committee made big headlines on the weekend. Just
Busy week.
a busy week for them because, like, in what seems like impeccable timing, they published a report last week, like just before the weather hit like 35 degrees on the weekend. And the big headline that I saw come out of it is that the UK is not prepared for the world impacted by climate change in which we currently live. So, like, we are already in a warmed world and we are not set up to deal with it, essentially. Um, and one of the other really interesting things, which I felt kind of really brought this home, was the updated climate scenarios. Did you hear about this?
Oh, no. Tell me.
So there's a set of potential climate scenarios that cover the whole of kind of up to 2100 that essentially try and kind of suggest based on a range of like social factors and environmental factors what could happen in the remainder of the century in terms of global warming. And there's like best case scenario, most likely scenario, worst case scenario is kind of the best way to think about it. So it's like we're really fucked because it's really hot where we're at the moment, and like if we all get our shit together it might be okay is my descriptors.
Clear in my mind. Thank you.
I hope they adopt it as, as official titles. Oh, anyway,
Ugh, sad.
um, but they kind of refresh them with the latest science and modeling every few years, and they have recently done this, and it's caused lots of like very incorrect headlines. But one of the kind of stories that came out of it is that they have um taken away a couple of the scenarios, one of which being uh, the lowest scenario, which is called the Shared Socioeconomic Pathway 1.9.
Mhm.
And that's essentially like
SSP?
SSP, optimistically kind of the best warming scenario. And they've had to remove it because we have produced too many emissions to be able to meet it now.
Shut up. Are you
Yeah.
joking?
No,
Oh my god, what?
I
Oh my
know.
gosh, no, Ella, I really wish you hadn't told me that.
This
Live
is
spiral,
live
live spiral,
spiral. Live
seriously?
spiral. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so bad. What, so there's actually just no way to even get there?
Not in the pathway that they set out in terms of the emissions that they said should be released, because they kind of have like carbon budgets. So like you'll
Oh.
release this many emissions in these decades, etc. So obviously that is not good news.
Ella, that's really upset me.
This is a live and direct spiral. I should have prepped you before this, Kim. This is a live reaction. She's dying.
We're all dying, Ella. Oh, that's so sad. Also, like, do you know what's so sad about that is that obviously the first couple of times that we will have done like climate risk analysis for the organizations that we worked in. Like that felt like such a hopeful scenario. And it was like, some of the transition risks might be a bit more significant because we'll have to take like drastic action to get there. But all the modeling pretty much always showed that that was like the cheapest route that we could take to a more resilient future. So to know that that has just been like stripped out is that is a real kicker. That
I
is a real
know.
kicker.
And
Oh,
it's not to say that we can't like still hit, the lower ends of warming, but just that
yeah.
scenario that they kind of set out. Because this SSPs have environmental data, but they also have like socioeconomic data, so social factors, economic growth factors, and things like that. And so
Mm,
in that pathway that they set out, we can't meet it. So I think it's not to say that we can't still hit a really ambitious target to limit global warming, but under that pathway that they set out, we can no longer do it. And I think that just really hits home about
yeah.
it. We are not taking enough action to hit these targets that we're setting ourselves.
Yeah. I guess obviously in the theme of the podcast, we want to try an upward spiral. What I will say, even though that is like actually breaking my heart, that adaptation seems to be getting a bit more of like a public stage, which is good. So, on the converse of us not being able to mitigate climate change to the extent that we thought we were going to, at least hopefully governments, businesses, households are taking adaptation measures a bit more seriously and like kind of know what they need to do to make their lives a bit more comfortable in this warming world.
Yeah, exactly. And we're obviously like it has been obvious for many years, but I think it is getting increasingly obvious that we are like already in a warmed world where we're seeing the impacts of climate change. Like we are in that place already right now. And I agree. I hope that
Mhm.
kind of that message is landing. And I think adaptation is getting a bit more airtime. And obviously we saw a lot of it over the weekend with the well-timed CCC report. Um and a couple of the headlines that came out around I think one of the stats that came out was that like 92% of homes in England or in the UK are going to overheat by 2050 if we have a warming of 2 degrees. So like 9 out
Mm.
of 10 of our houses are going to be too hot in the next 25 years.
Do you know what? I believe that because 9 out of 10 people I've been speaking to this last week are living in a too hot house, so
Fact
that's
checked.
not that shocking to me.
Fact
Yeah,
checked.
anecdotally fact check.
But do you know what?
Yeah,
It would
that's
be a
tough.
great time to start an air conditioning business.
Yeah, guys, you should not this is obviously not a financial advice podcast, but we should all be investing in some aircon. But aircon has like really difficult rebound effects to manage. So one of my like favorite scary facts is that one of the most recent times that they had to turn back on coal power production in the UK wasn't in like the depths of winter when everyone was like demanding like extra heating or extra energy or anything like that. It was in summer when everyone was like plugging in our £20 Argos fans and creating a really significant spike in
Mm,
electricity demand in households. And the energy system operator had to ask a power coal fueled power station to turn back on to meet that demand rather than like meeting it by renewable power, which I just think is like so scary.
that is crazy. On that note, what percentage of global greenhouse gas emissions do you think uh, air conditioning is responsible for?
Oh god. Okay, let me think about this.
Like, of
So I
all of
think
the greenhouse gases in the whole of the world?
like the airline industry is about 3%. I think data centers are at about 3%. So I would say aircon, is it crazy to say like 1%? Oh no. Oh my god, you're gonna make me life spiral again.
It's 4%.
Shit, really? More than the airline? Oh
I
my
don't how
god.
much yeah, airlines is 2.5. So, yeah, apparently this was in a Guardian article that I read. So, like, take it with a pinch of salt. But, yeah, according to the Guardian article, 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions
Ella, the
from air
point of the
conditioning.
pod is to bring
But
us up.
no, that I have an upward spiral. Do you know
Okay.
what you can power air conditioning and fans with? Electricity. Do you know you can get electricity from? The sun.
The
100% of the sun
sun.
doesn't go through the Strait of Hormuz, does it, Kim?
Oh my god, my favorite, my favorite fact. Oh my god, yeah, you're so right. Like, there's a solution to that problem. We can decarbonize that aircon.
Exactly, and it's, like, cheap, easy to build, renewable power. Like, it's, like, close the loop.
Also, solar panels on residential properties have another adaptation benefit in that because they're shiny, they reflect the sun's rays and the heat. So, like in our flat at the moment, we have a loft, and my partner went up in the loft the other day. I'm like really scared that a man lives in the loft. Have you heard about all these like rumors where like
Yeah.
men just like live in people's lofts. And sometimes I just hear a little creaky creak in the night and I think, oh God, that like Gerald's in the loft again.
I get
And
really
then
sucked in by these, like, Instagram reel story times where this happens. It's really bad.
yeah, I know, me too. So have been concerned that there's a man in the loft. And then my partner went up into the loft the other day and he was like, no one can survive up here. It is so hot, like absolutely baking heat up there. And our like flat building doesn't have solar panels on. And I was just thinking, if there were some solar panels on there, it would be reflecting those warm rays away. So what you should do is what we're saying is the solution to all of this is get aircon, but get solar panels to power them.
Nice, I like it. I got a text from my dad on the weekend, so in my parents' house, my dad has, like, a loft that he just hangs out in, like a little man
Oh my
cave
god,
all the time.
he's a man in a loft.
He's a man in the loft, but he also, like, has a house. So he's not doing it in a creepy way, he just spends all his time up there. I don't know why.
Random.
And he has a thermometer up there, and over the weekend, it hit 42 degrees in the loft.
Stop. That is insane.
I know, I
That
know.
is insane.
He obviously wasn't
Oh my
hanging out in
god.
it over the weekend, but 42
So he's
degrees.
basically turned it into his own personal sauna.
Sauna. Maybe that is adaptation. He needs to turn it not into his man cave, but he needs to turn it into a sauna.
Yeah, he puts a sauna in there and a plunge pool in the garden. He can charge like 20 quid a go.
Done. Nailed it. Retirement sorted.
Retirement funds set up and ready to pop.
This is a real tangent, but I need to get this on here because my housemate has been making fun of me about this. I recently joined the local leisure centre, as everyone in my life knows, 'cause it's where I spend all of my time, and they have a sauna, and I keep seeing people with these little, like, felt things on their head, and I was like, "What is this?" So I was,
Sauna
like,
hat.
chatting to someone, and it's a sauna hat, and I think I now need to buy a sauna hat. I think I need to become the kind of person that owns a sauna hat.
Is a sauna hat to just make you hotter? Is it like insulation for your head?
No. Well, yes, it's insulation for your head, but the other way round. It, like, keeps the hot air off of your head, so it, like, means you can stay in longer because it's, like, protecting your head from the hottest part of the sauna, which is obviously the top where your head is. So,
Oh, so
adaptation to
you
the
can get a
sauna.
bod. Oh my god, so it's like sauna hat is an adaptation measure in the sauna. Okay, so
Exactly.
let's take more inspiration from the sauna.
Honestly, sauna life.
Do you know what that is? And this is a nice tangent. That is a passive cooling measure. So I feel like with heat waves like this, everyone kind of thinks about like technological interventions that you can make in the home. For example, installing aircon or getting a irreversible heat pump and like the Argos fan that we all have, like installing loads of things. But then that all creates that negative rebound effect of it requiring more electricity. But there's also been some research to suggest that passive cooling measures are often much more um, effective in cooling the space that you're in, but also not causing those rebound effects. So you might have seen it. There's a lot of like examples in countries like India and in that sort of like South Asian region where they will have like running water through buildings, and then that becomes a cooling measure like through the building because it carries a bit like your El Nino La Nina explanation. It like carries the hot air with it.
That's so cool.
Isn't that so interesting? And then obviously in like Europe, lots of shuttered buildings, lots of windows that have got like blinds that you could bring down. It feels crazy that like we just don't have any of that in the UK. Like we have no external shading; it's all internal shading. And by the point where the heat's getting into the windows, like it's not too late, but it would be a lot easier to deal with it if
Mm.
we just like dealt with it externally, which I thought was very interesting. Obviously, insulation being something that helps you stay nice and cozy in the winter, but also helps lock the cold heat in the summer. So just like lots of interesting things like that that aren't always based on technological intervention. And your favorite, trees.
I was gonna say, do trees count? I love trees. I honestly, trees for me, MVP of Maybank holiday weekend. Honestly, do
They
you
were
know where
going
there's
for
a
it.
surprising lack of trees? Hampstead Heath.
London. All right.
No, actually, no, this was a conversation I was having recently at work that apparently London is the world's largest urban forest.
Oh,
And
okay.
according to, I think there's like a UN definition that a forest is anywhere that has at least 20% trees across like the land. London has 21%. So technically, London is a forest. Isn't that a fun fact?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I take it back. I take it back.
But I
That's so
love
fun.
there's this like whole definition around London being this like urban forest. um,
Mm.
and, like, to define London as, like, an actual urban forest, which I think is so cool.
Have you looked up your tree equity score?
No, I haven't. What's a tree equity score, Kim?
So a tree equity score. So this was something that I think the Woodland Trust pulled together with the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare. So they ran this project, which was basically like trees are an essential service to like public health and well-being. Yet not everyone has good access to trees or green space, and therefore cannot access the benefits that they give. So they've got this thing called the Tree Equity Score UK, which is like a map-based app where you can put in your postcode and basically see disparity between addresses in urban tree coverage. And it's really interesting, almost like thinking that through the lens of adaptation. Like the flats where I've lived where it's been cooler are flats that have got trees right outside and have provided like an incredible amount of shading. Like at the moment, we're in a flat where we are just bare to the elements. And that must be why it's like so much hotter. So yeah, we'll pop that in the description.
Yeah.
But it is pretty wild to see, especially in London, like how different it is. What's interesting is central London is really low. So like the actual
Mm.
city of London is like 67. Um, Around Westminster, it's like 70, 71. And then it gets, as you get out into the burbs, it gets a bit greener, which is good.
It's so
Interesting.
interesting. And obviously trees, like, cool the air. I think there's some, like, stat that they can help, like, planting more trees can help, like, cut air temperatures by, like, up to, like, 5 degrees, I think. It's quite, like, significant, and you can feel it when you're, like, walking around, and I'm, like, scurrying for the shade.
Also, because it cools beneath the tree, but you know that it also cools above the tree.
That's
Because
cool.
it's like obviously it's like evaporating water or like I don't really know what the like tech the biological term is, but it's cooling underneath, but because it's getting heated up, it's also evaporating water. So it creates this almost like cool dome above the tree too.
That's
So
so
yeah,
cool.
we should keep going with planting more trees basically. Um
Should. So, just like I obviously love a tree as an adaptation measure, but it also got me thinking about other cool adaptation projects for this while we were doing some research for this episode. And I found out about this website called London Cool Spaces. Have you heard of this?
ooh, no, I haven't.
So it's essentially like a map that has like a list of indoor spaces for Londoners where you can like shelter from the sun and like cool down, and it ranks them by what kind of facilities they have. So they've got like tier 1 cool spaces which have like inside AC, water available, like free to act. They're all the sites are like free to access. And then like tier 2 sites which have like slightly less facilities but are also cool. And then it also does like kind of typically cooler areas, so like areas by water, and then it also maps tree cover as well. So you can go onto this and see like where near you is a cool space, where has a lot of greenery, where you might be cooler. And I just thought it was really cool. Pun
Oh, that
intended.
is so cool. I'm looking at it right now. I'm not sure in my area there doesn't seem to be that many spaces, but there is a lot of tree canopy cover, so that's
South
good.
London, babe. It's a wasteland.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, let me look at around you, yeah. Oh my god, popping off in North London. Okay, so you have to get on the 40-degree tube, go to North London to find yourself a tier 1 cool space.
North London's where it's at, guys. I'm just saying. North of the river, baby.
No, that's so sick. Who, like, developed that? Is that, like, the Mayor of London?
Yeah, I think it was the Mayor of London. It's like a London, like London mayoral campaign. Which I just think is so cool. It's only available, I think, from like June to September, so slightly missed out on the crazy hot weekend that we just had. I think they like only release
Yeah.
it or like update it for certain times of the year. But I just feel like if you're like in a really overheated flat and you're like, oh, where can I go that will be cool? It's not going to cost me loads of money to get into. Here it is.
What a lovely initiative from the Mayor of London,
I
and I mean,
know.
ties nicely to our latest book club where we're reading Steve Kahn's book about air quality in London, which, spoiler, I loved.
Oh, have you read it already?
Yeah, mate, I flew through it. I like really loved it. It's got big text, so you can get through it
Okay,
quite quickly.
nice. Okay, I'll grab that off you and then I can read it.
Yeah, it's so good. That's such a nice like adaptation measure that makes me feel positive about the heat wave.
I feel like it's just such a cool initiative, like highlighting these spaces and making those spaces more accessible for people, I think is really cool. So
Very cool.
very cool.
Love that.
So adaptation, guys, is already happening.
Yeah. Something I really liked from the CCC's adaptation committee report that came out last week was their chat about targets. So I think this is something that we've really struggled with in the past working in corporate sustainability. Like it's not easy, but it's straightforward to set a mitigation target as a business. So you can just set a net zero by X date. And the idea with that is to get to net zero emissions being caused by your company's operations or activities. So you can kind of create like a nice waterfall chart where you're like, year on year, we will avoid X amount of carbon, and then that will get us to net zero by whatever date. But with adaptation, it's always been like really difficult to think about exactly what kind of targets, even like at a national level, like the government can set, and therefore businesses can also like take inspirational from. So what the committee has done is provided some examples of like priority climate risks to respond to with proposed adaptation targets. So I think some of the interesting ones that they've come up with is like risks to the lives of vulnerable people from extreme heat is obviously one of the most significant priority risks relating to climate change. In terms of an adaptation target, you could set something like by 2050, excess heat related mortality should be no greater and ideally lower than today's national average. So, like almost tying it back to something that's measurable and that can be tracked and almost like people can then have accountability against.
I think that one of the other ones that I saw on the news was around like air conditioning and putting air conditioning in buildings for vulnerable people, so like hospitals, care homes, and schools. It was like make sure all of these buildings have air conditioning by was it 2030?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, in the next couple of decades. So like that is like a really clear measure of like what needs to be done.
Tangible action instead of being like, this is really hot and we can't really deal with it. And we all kind of having this very reactive, like, go to Argos and get the fan response. Like, we're actually planning for this to just be a part of our new normal. It's a bit like when after COVID, when everyone was like, this is the new normal and we need to not think about like going back to normal. We've just reset the baseline and this is what it is. It's kind of the same sort of thinking.
Definitely. And one of my other favorite recommendations that they made that I also saw um on various different news articles was setting temperature thresholds for working. So I think they have this in Spain where if you're doing like desk-based work, you can't work in indoor temperatures above like 27. And if you're doing like light outdoors work, it's like 25 or something. And they have these like temperature thresholds where you can and can't work. And in what I think is true British fashion, we've taken that and said we should not be working. And I loved the response to that, that we're like,
Yeah, I love that.
we're done. Day off, please. It's like
I agree.
like a snow day. This is our or this may be a slightly depressing thought, but I feel like that is gonna be our version of a snow day, is like a heat day.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, well, day off.
Day off.
We'll go to
And
the
that's how
pub.
we end it positively. Extra bank holiday.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Okay, how do you feel then? I feel hot, I feel sweaty.
Yeah, I feel quite warm and can't wait for a shower. But I feel like, obviously we can't take away from the reality that it was a really, really hot weekend. The weather is like really quite messed up. And it is getting hotter. But like there are things we can do. There are cool measures happening. There's lots of like opportunity for investment, improvement in infrastructure with adaptation. And like I feel like not terrible would be my my takeaway.
I agree. I feel like there's a potential for these events to almost be a Trojan horse whereby progress starts happening off the back of them because there'll be like a societal shift in terms of how people can deal with this kind of condition and like people will demand more of the government in terms of support and even their own businesses like people will be like this is outrageous conditions to work in, especially if you're working outside, in conditions like this. Like, there definitely should be protections in place for those people
Mm.
because it's not gonna be that rare.
It's not. And I would love to hear listeners' tips or like weird and wonderful things that they did to stay cool in the heat wave. Like if you've got any like weird and wacky, amazing ways that you were staying cool, let us know. Like drop us a DM on Instagram, drop it in the comments, drop us a message on LinkedIn. Let us know. I want to hear the tips so that when we do our next inevitable heatwave episode, we can have some practical actions for everyone. Well, that's a wrap on our hot and heavy heatwave episode.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. I hope you're feeling cool and informed on what you can do to stay cold.
I feel like there's a great pun that around there about like staying cool. Like everyone needs to stay cool, but like cool in temperature, but also cool in vibes. So that's the energy that I'm giving out to everyone. Take from that what you will. Stay cool,
So
kids.
cool. So cool. Stay cool.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget, like, subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for our next episode.
See you next time, guys. Thanks so much.